gave us a lot of support. The presenters were Ken and Kevin and I, and each had our own piece. Several people in the room were there, so it was good. So here are the basic members. And Paula Walsh-Muley was a member until she left to become city solicitor, but she was working right up with us. Michael Davenport who was the CRA officer for First Financial Bank, and a lot of us thought he was doing a terrific job, but he got a business opportunity in Michigan that he's taken, and he's already gone. So he's been in Michigan a couple of weeks already. These are the main members, and then there are also advisors. So like Joe Huber was often here for Gina Gallagher, different people. Billy Weber has been one of our stalwarts, and so has Noam Prince been one of our stalwarts, and they're not here today, which is kind of surprising, but they may get come. So this was our strategic focus. So when Mr. Winburn appointed the task force, we had the job of finding new money for community development without jeopardizing funding for the other critical resources. And we stuck to that. We worked hard not to make that happen. So these items are, first off, when the city set its budget last June for July 1, 2014 to June 30, 2016, they essentially took out $4 million of community development project funds for 1 year and $4 million for the next. So our first job was to replace those monies. And then we've been busy meeting with a variety of people on the task force, finding new sources, new ways, new plans, new patterns, doing a lot of research. We also want to encourage CDCs to kind of do bigger, stronger, more transformative projects, not one-off houses, but to grow to use the capacity they now have to do bigger and stronger projects. And then ensure that we leverage all of the resources that are used, whether those are in kind or whether those are dollars. And we have put actually in the report, it says we will leverage 3 to 1, but a lot of times CDC projects leverage up to 7 to 1. This is our first goal, and it was kind of surprising to all of us to get to this number. We didn't even try to put numbers in until the last couple of weeks of the task force meeting, and it was the number that made sense. Now, if you can look at, you want to put in strategies A and B. Yeah. We're saying $20 million, and that's $20 million for the year 2022, but not until then. We'll be building up to it. And for the city budget in 2016, where we're asking, which will start July 1, where we're asking for $5 million, we have already gotten a commitment from LISC, which most of you know, the National Financial Intermediary. They have already said that they will match, if the city puts up $5 million in money, that they will put up $5 million in loan funding for projects. And a lot of the city money that they give us is actually not grants, it can be loans and various ways to do all that. But you know, we would have $10 million on the table July 1 if this works out. And that's where we really essentially make the guarantee that we're going to make sure we have a 3 to 1 leverage on every dollar. And that by the time, so that's $15 million for the year fiscal year 2016, and that would be $60 million by the time we get to 2022. But I also have, and it's not in this PowerPoint, we just finished updating it, the major CDCs in town, the biggest ones, or the ones with the most capacity, have given us their read on the transformative projects they'd like to do that are definite real plan. They aren't dreams. They've got plans. They may not be shovel ready, but they're planned projects. And that those projects from 19 communities add up to over $500 million. Now, of course, the city would only be putting up a little bit of gap funding for that. But that kind of transformation of exciting projects could happen in our neighborhoods in the next few years if we find this support. So that's why we're committed to finding this support. So the next thing we're asking for is a city staff member to help us, or to be appointed to be a partner, to be a key person, to be a go-between. We really do not, and this was throughout the task force, all the different members of the task force. We think there's a lot of federal, state, and non-governmental opportunities just left on the table there's a lot of, the federal government is complex enough that the Department of Commerce has some opportunities, Health and Human Services has community development opportunities, and you have to have somebody who knows that, learns that, stays on top of that, follows up with that, so that we can get those opportunities. And then we can fill out, they end up being the big things. But we know how to do all that. We know how to write those proposals, and we just know what it is. Then we need really somebody to kind of be an ombuds for community development kinds of things. And we're proposing, and it comes later in the report, a community development collaborative of all kinds of people involved in community development. A small group, but all the key players, all the key stakeholders, including the city. And we'd like them to start working on that so that by June of 2016, we're really underway. Part D of all this is as neighborhoods begin to rejuvenate, begin to get more exciting, begin to draw more people, as a number of them are already doing. Walnut Hills with Fireside Pizza, where you can't park on Friday and Saturday night, is a key example. That some of those neighborhood-based fines, fees, and whatnot begin to come back to the neighborhood. And for instance, as parking meters go back in and as they're generating more revenue, some portion of that can go to whatever neighborhood has done the development that's created that. And actually, the mayor has already begun this with the deal with the developer, and it's Walnut Hills again as an example, but that Walnut Hills will get back some of the money from the developer that the developer's saving in tax abatement. So the developer will get 65%. I think Walnut Hills gets 7.5% of the abated taxes on that deal, and that'll just be written into the deal. Then we also took, this is the whole rolling back the property tax every year. We've heard City Council take a great deal of political capital out of that, and be very proud of it. We suggest that if they just didn't do that, it could generate as much as $10 million. Now, I've heard different numbers. Over the years, I've only heard $10 million, but suddenly I'm hearing lower numbers. Nonetheless, saving, just not saving everybody in town 35 cents on their property taxes would generate a big amount that could really meet most of our goal that we set in the first place for having enough money every year for CDCs to really go after. And what we did not tackle it head on. What we suggested was that they give this idea to their new statistics people. They've got a whole department now, statistics people, and that those people should check it out and see what happens. So I felt good about the fact that we were willing to say that. Then we're talking about leveraging private investment and development opportunities. We think, for instance, the city would really gain if, when a neighborhood, like say Price Hill, wanted to use Mount Echo Park, if the city just lets Mount Echo Park for free. Now maybe Price Hill would still have to have an insurance policy. That would be fine. But that the investment the city would make by simply not charging for the use of Mount Echo Park, which could be a pretty penny. That event that's going to bring more people to Price Hill, that's going to make things happen, that's going to have vendors bringing things in. All of that would just be an investment the city could make, where it wouldn't really take any money away. And it will make Price Hill more exciting, get a bigger audience, get people there who've never been there. So we're suggesting that all of those can increase the vibrancy of the city and make things go better. Then also the city's talking about quality of life officers with the building department helping with police officers, helping with code enforcement and working harder on hazard abatement. And we are encouraging them in that. We also know of several initiatives, for instance, in the State House right now and in other places where we would ask the city's lobbyist, that's number C, ask the city's lobbyist to take that on as part of their task, to make sure that when the NIAP, which is the Neighborhood Investment Program, that would allow corporations to invest and get a tax credit for investing in a neighborhood development project, when that is ready and teed up in the State House, that the city's lobbyists join with all of us in pushing to make those things happen. We're also looking for, and these are ongoing, these conversations with various kinds of investors. There's a lot of people who have money and interest rates are low enough that they're not getting much of a return. And in general, CDCs have been thought of almost as charity in a sense. You kind of give up you want to You might get a tax credit, you might get a little something, but we aren't going to really pay a decent interest rate. But we can usually, with the projects that are happening now and with the excitement in some neighborhoods, we can pay interest. There's no problem. So why don't we just begin to peddle that to a new market? Why don't we begin to let people with real money, i.e. big money, begin to know that this is a possibility, and they don't just have to treat us like little kids and pat us on the head, that they can make money in our interest. We had to do that with banks a long time ago. It took a while to do that too, but once done, it was done forever. We also, and this was interesting, number 1.03, A and B. So we have for years, CDCs have gotten, this year it's $343,000 that is going out as operating funds to hire consultants and staff. It's going out to 11 CDCs. And actually, when I was meeting with Mr. Winburn, because for years we've also tried to get the same pot for economic development, so that people can be paid to work in the business districts and work in housing. And the city's response has always been, well, we can just cut the housing money in half and make it economic development, which would not win. Charlie Winburn said, hey, let's come up with, and he made these numbers, he created these numbers using his little calculator. So if this goes through, then we'll have enough money now to pay people to work both in their business districts and on their housing properties, which would be great. So this 1.03 is one of the most important pieces in here. We also have now a lot of CDCs, a lot of neighborhoods without CDCs that are excited and want CDCs. We have a couple of little startups. We have a lot of interesting new things starting up. Mount Washington has got a staff member sitting in the Madisonville office to begin to do some planning for them. Hey, girl. So there's a lot of new ways to look at this, but an awful lot of people now saying that they want CDCs in their neighborhoods. And we presented, as all of this was churning through over the last 6-7 months, we met with the Budget and Finance Committee several times, and they began to ask, why doesn't every neighborhood have a CDC? And everybody doesn't need a huge CDC, but having a neighborhood drive its own projects is the way to make an exciting neighborhood. So this is our idea, is to consider a startup incubator, to just begin to work with people, to have them think it through, to have them work on it. There are right now 21 communities that do not have CDCs. We also want to improve communications about CDCs from the city, so they can help us. If they're sending out a press release and we're sending out a press release, we figure that's going to be a win and we'll begin to get more attention. Although you have to give the Enquirer a lot of credit for having been focusing on neighborhoods almost more than anybody. It's been great. This Community Development Collaborative 1.05 is to bring together all the stakeholders, and we mentioned CDC Association, LISC, Cincinnati Development Fund, Port Authority, and of course city folk, so that we can begin to take advantage, leverage each other's abilities and leverage each other's strengths and make things happen. Then we also want to create a clear process for allocating funds. I think that needs to advise the city. It should say something about advising the city. So that one's going to change a little bit. Ensures sufficient allocation of funding to communities and creates a reassuring process for developers to utilize. And a large part of all this, most developers and most corporations really, they just want you to tell them what the rules are, so that they will get stopped and hung up and kind of things. So they aren't necessarily worried just about the dollars, they're worried about the process. And that's, so that's why that one is in there. And then, since we ended up with a 7-year plan, essentially, we said that we would stick around, monitor, report out, and come back to council a couple of times a year to say what's going on, and come back, of course, to the community development industry, which is our bigger set of partners, is the whole community development industry. The task force will stay together in some form, and we haven't really figured that out. We're working on all of those kind of things. But basically, that's what we come up with after starting work in early October. That's where we are today, and the Budget and Finance Committee has got it on its agenda of things to work on, and they gave us a lot of praise and support. It was very positive. Right, Kevin?
That's right.
Yeah. I had a good time.